Hi everyone, I'm Dương Nguyễn Minh Thuận, also known as Red Shade. I'm here today with YCFCG to have a look into my workflow on how to make your own mecha characters. Thanks YCFCG for this opportunity. First, some self-introductions. First and foremost, I'm an art lover. I love all things art, from sculptures to digital painting to music and everything like that. So I have a variety of interests. You can see below here I have a variety of interests such as in anime style characters, stylized characters, realistic character, mechas, and all of that. Nowadays I'm working as a sculptor mainly, working on collectibles, minis for big and small studios alike. And in the past I have worked on some game and film projects, so I have some experience in game and film assets as well. And along with that, I'm a teacher and trainer. I teach Blender, I teach game asset making, and I also have some experience as a trainer for a game asset company. So that's a short history about me. You can see more of my work on my ArtStation profile at Redshade here. Now, onto the design workflow itself. Depend on what you're wanting to make, your workflow is gonna be different every time. I have an outline here for the character in question. We're gonna start from my inspiration. First, you might have a goal, set a goal, a target for what you want to make. That will help you guide your creation process throughout. We'll go in depth into each of these, but let's take a quick look over on each of them first. Next, we have reference, sketch, lockout scope, cleanup, high poly scope, topology, or retopology, UV, bake, texture, rig and pose, look depth, lighting, and final renders. Depending on what we are going to do, this workflow gonna be different every time. Let's say we already have a concept art, that will eliminate some work from the inspiration and reference phase. If we're making a game models, topology, UV, and bake gonna be a little bit more heavy. If we are making a film asset, the topology phase is gonna be a little bit lighter. And if we are making a portfolio piece, you're most likely gonna do all these. But let's say if you work in a studio environment, most likely inspiration, reference, and even sometimes sketch is already made by the concept art team or somebody else. And you only need to carry out the high poly, topology, UV, bake, and texture. Rig and pose gonna be done by another department. Look depth, lighting, and render and final no renders is also gonna be done by another department, so you don't have to worry about that. This is a general workflow of mine for original character concept design. But for the purpose of the presentation, we're gonna be focused on a original character design workflow. So no available concept art, no other teammate and all that. And the end product, we're gonna put it on our portfolio. So that's our goal. So if that is our goal, to create a new character design for your portfolio, generally gonna be the step that you're gonna take. We're going through step by step on my process to create an original character for your portfolios. Let's take this character that I recently made, Lilith the Mecha Sucubbus, as an example for this presentation. First step of the creative process, it is inspiration. So you must start from an idea, right? Let it guide you throughout the creative process. So that means asking yourself a couple of questions. Is it a practice scope, practice model, or is it going to be on your portfolio to show to your recruiter that you can do this thing, you are interested in this thing? So that's the purpose set. Next, you're going to have to think about where your model going to end up being. Is it gonna be end up in a game, in a film, or you just need a couple of still render to show up your design or things like that? Answering this question will help you with decision making down the line. So that's the goal about where it's gonna be, when it's gonna end up. Now let's think about the character ideas. What inspired you to make this character? So that will be the main guide for your characters. Next, think about the character personality, their role in their story, their color scheme maybe, their style, their work settings, because all of these will affect your character in one way or another. And if you can display all of this on your design, your character will look appealing to most. Now let's go back to our character as an example. When talking about a succubus, you might think about a fantasy succubus, right? You know, a female demon with wings. But when I came up with the idea for Lilith the Mecha Sucubbus, I think, hey, there's not that many sci-fi succubus out there, so let's make one. She's gonna stand out that way. So that's what get me started on this character. Let's take a look at a couple of more points. So here are the answers to the question I asked earlier. So I know that this character gonna end up on my portfolios. So I'm gonna want to put a little bit more polish on it. It's not a study character that I keep for myself. She's gonna be displayed proudly on my portfolio. So I'm gonna do my best on polishing her models. And for the workflows, I'm gonna use the film and still render workflow for her, so that I can show her at her best quality and not be compressed by any backing texture of a game or something like that. And for the idea about the characters, as I said earlier, she's gonna be a sci-fi succubus. And for the job, she can be an assassin and infiltrator style character, right? So a typical succubus is a humanoid character. So I want a humanoid robot to go with her. I also really want to do a humanoid sci-fi succubus character, so I say that she can morph from her mecha form to her human form. She can use her attack to turn into anybody, basically. But that said, I still want to connect her human form and mecha form in some way. So I keep some of her landmark character, like the collar here, the glove, the boot, the shoe. So I keep some of the landmark quite the same. So that's her idea here. And as for her color scheme, I want some cyberpunk color, bright neon color for her. So things like pink, blue, yellow. And lastly, there are many sci-fi style. So I picked the clean futuristic route for her. So I'm gonna want her to look pristine and clean. Not so clean that it make her look like she just came out of the factory. I'm gonna want some wear and tear on her to show that she have been through many operations already. With my goal set, I can head out to look for some reference. About reference, different artists may need different reference, right? If you work on many mechanical mecha robot design before, you may know how they join, how the armor works already. But if you don't, you may need to look up some reference about toys or robot or sci-fi design from anywhere, from other artists, from toy designers. And if you are already familiar with human anatomy, you may not need some reference. But if you don't, definitely look them up. You may think that human anatomy isn't needed in mecha design, but I assure you it can help you in one way or another. Either in joints or shape or just the visual flow of your characters. And for my particular case, my character is gonna have a very humanoid look. So having a strong anatomy knowledge definitely help in this particular characters. And for the program, I would recommend PureRep. I mean, it's free, it's good. So if you haven't tried it out, give it a try. And as I said before, you may need some anatomy reference, some color scheme reference if you don't have a color scheme in mind already. Remember to follow somewhere near the basic color theory. Shape ID are referring to the shell of your mecha characters. Not all mecha characters are the same, right? Some have many jagged edge, pointy edge like this character here. Some have more soft body surfaces. And of course, which one you pick should depend on your characters, what you want to tell with your characters. But if you are unfamiliar, as I said earlier, more reference will always help. Real life ref are some of these cool gadgets or devices that we already have in real life. My character gonna have a Batwing. Succubus always have a Batwing. So I look up real Batwing, how they look, some robotic Batwing that we have already. That can give me some inspiration how to tackle these things. And for the Batwing, I'm gonna model some frame to mimic the bat bone, right? And for the skin, I'm gonna use some transparent materials like this umbrella like here. So I'm collecting these reference to see how a transparent material would look. Materials refer to car paint or metal or plastic or any surface that you may not know what would look like old rusty metal surface or beaten metal or anything like that. So if you're unfamiliar, go look them up. Pose of a character is also very important. So if you don't have an idea for a character pose already, you should go and look for some inspiration. You might take some bit of this character pose, bit of that character pose, and make your own very unique pose, because your character pose affect your character read in a way. Lighting is also very important. Whether your character gonna be in a studio setting like this, or just standing outside under the sun, or in a fight scene or something. So if you have an idea on what you want to achieve with your lighting, you're gonna get what you want very fast, rather than just endlessly trying different lighting settings. So reference on lighting always helps. These are just a couple of example I'm gonna show you. I have a lot more, but I think these are enough to some of my reference on my characters. When our research and preparation are complete, now it's time for the creation process. First is the sketch and block out scope phase. You can do this on a 2D canvas, of course, trying out different silhouette for the character, different shape, different color scheme. But in my case, I'm gonna use ZBrush to iterate on my design. So in this phase, you're gonna want to work with Dynamesh using Move Brush, Clay Build Up, and all that to work out the form and shape of your characters. So in this phase, you're gonna want to be very rough, nothing final, nothing clean up yet. Don't give more than a couple of hours for each section of your characters. You're mainly just trying out new things. Work on a grayscale character like this first. Keep in mind basic principles of art like resting area, detail area, how the joint would work, wing would work, how would the wing flaps, how the weapon works, her silhouette is it good enough yet? Your detail distribution, your anatomy, your portion, does she look like a humanoid character from afar yet? Those are the most important thing at this step. If you work out all those from the beginning, you're gonna have a very good time on later stages. And once you are done with the grayscale scope, move on to color planning. So in this step, we're gonna use polypaint to plan out the color of our characters. So as I said earlier, I'm gonna use pink, yellow, blue, and blue to give her some eye-catching neon colors. And for the metal surfaces, use black or gray and various shades of them to represent that material in this stage. If your color balance and your emphasis are good in this stage, you're gonna have a very good time later. After the color plannings are done, move on. Most sci-fi artists I saw don't really put decal onto the designs, but I really like decal and put them anywhere I can that makes sense on my characters. So decal like line, graphics, text, those present on many electrical appliances already, so I think they make sense on a mechanical character design. Also they look very, very nice. And they can supplement some of those surface detail that you may have on your design, like bolt and nut and holes. Those can be replaced with decal, so you can switch between them to make your design look more appealing. Detail, decal, detail, decals. But remember to stick to your color scheme to make sure your character don't look too busy. Again, don't spend too long on this stage. When you have a character that look good from this distance, you're gonna have a very good time working on the design further in later stages. I'm gonna work out the detail, what they are, clean them up in later stages. In this stage, if your character looks good from afar, from their detail spacing, from their color, decals, if you're happy in this stage, you're gonna happy with your character in the final stage. But remember to stick fairly closely to your sketch here, don't do anything too far. Like don't change the amount of color in any region too much, or you may deviate from your original design. That could make your character look not as you intended in the first place. So keep that in mind as we move on to the later stages. As I said earlier, in this step, focus on your character's overall look, the silhouette, how they look from afar. work on that, the detail distribution. It's okay if they don't look very clean. All we need is this level of details right here, nothing concrete yet, just some marking for future detail, some separation lines. Basically just a rough plan on how your character gonna turn out in the future. Use Dynamesh, move and scope a lot. What's important right now is their proportion, how long their leg, their arms should be. In my case, I want this character to have a humanoid looks, so her proportion, her character proportion is very important. And when you're pretty much done with the layout of the detail of plannings, you can go ahead and put on some colors. Use polypaint to block out these colors. Some area like this don't even have detail, but I'm blocking some color to remind myself that I need some detail in that area in the future. All the decals. Remember to have a plan for your color for your character at the ready before you color your character, or else you might get lost and your character may look confusing to look at. Next is the cleanup and high polish phase. In this phase, I will take all the detail or the shape that I made in the block out phase all the way to finals. So that means all the sculpting, all the modeling, and all the unclear detail on your scope, you would want to make them all finals. On this phase, regarding the topologies, focus on the appearance of your detail first and foremost. So as long as your topology make the details looks good, that's okay. That's good. If that topology doesn't work in rigging phase, let's say it go in a different direction that you would want for your rig to look good, you can always retopologize them and break them down for the final rigs to work. So on this stage, just focus on the detail, make it look good as best as you can. Here we have Lilith's hyperly here. I have a couple of things to show you. First, hard surface modeling is very hard already. It's very hard to both get a good surface and a correct topology for deforming in rigs. So let's have a look at this part here. Let's say I want this part to be able to bend this way. This topology of this yellow-orange part right here is not that good for deforming. We will need something that's go along like this for it to deform correctly, but we're gonna leave that to the retopology phase later. For now, just focus on the appearance of your details. Make sure they look good when they are subdivided. That's the most important thing at this stage. Next, let me show you how ZBrush can maybe help lighten the load of your hard surface modeling a little bit. So let's take the chest part right here. I have sufficient topology for detail like this. For detail like this, you only need a clean base for your chest. If you model using topology aligned like this, it may break the curve of the surface right here. So model a clean plate and then add in a line later using ZBrush brush, such as this. Now, how many lines to have? Now you should already plan out how many lines to have and where to have them already. I'm just showcasing it. I'm just showing you how ZBrush can help your hard surface modeling a lot. It also helps if you have a hard surface alpha library like this. It will help you add detail onto your scope a lot faster by using the standard brush here, along with drag. And then I can load in some alphas. Using ZBrush to add in detail like this is very fast, and you can undo them whenever you like. A lot faster than if you were to model them each individually. But again, add in this detail according to your blockout plan. Don't just put them everywhere. They are not gonna look good. But remember, these alpha are just for detailing. Your shape, your form, your modelings, your lines, your separation, your sculpting, and all that should come first, and then alphas later, just as a final detailing pass. Topologies. This is where you make sure your final topology is fit for whatever purpose you have for your character in the beginning. So if your character is gonna end up in a games or in a portfolio that show that you can make game model, you may want to work on the topology to the best of your abilities. Optimize them, let no polygon unused and wasted, and also make sure that your topology went in the right direction for it to move correctly. But in my case, I'm gonna only do some still render for these characters. I want her to appear at her best. Basically just a textured high poly from ZBrush. So I use decimation with no normal map backing to keep all her detail and nothing is fake. So she will be at her highest qualities. But I would not recommend this if your character gonna end up in a film or games. You may want to spend a little bit of time on your topology for your characters. Make sure everything works the way they should. But in my case, I'm just gonna use decimate for most of her details. Here we have Lilith's topology. Let me give you a look around. As you can see, most of her topology are just decimation. So I basically just use ZBrush decimate to take down the poly count of the high polys. Because as I said earlier, keep your original intent in mind. Lilith, she's gonna be a personal project and not gonna be used in any production. So I really don't worry about her topology that much. So I don't want to waste a lot of time on retopology and all that. So I use decimate to keep her detail, cut the topology and the baking out her needs. So depend on your intent for your characters. Pick a suitable workflow for your characters. So make sure they look the best and is the fastest to make. After the topology of your characters is secure, we can move on to UV and backstage. And this stage is also rely heavily on your end goal for your characters. So if your character is going to go into a game, you may only want 1 or 2 UV tile for your entire characters. If your character is going into a film, you may have liberty for more texture tile, which is why I use a set of texture for Lilith. And that's just the textured part of her. She also have some procedurally textured part. that I don't use UV. So this step is entirely optional depending on your end goal for your characters. Same is goal for baking. Some film models also use bake. Most game models use baking. Baking is the process where you take detail from your hyperbolic model and put them onto your low poly with correct topology models. Very optional for film characters. But in my case, as I said earlier, all details are already present on her model because I use decimation, so I don't need any baking for this character. This is a quick way to do it, but I would not recommend it for any production workflows. When all the topology, UVs, and baking is done, it's time for texturing. I always use Substance Painter for my texturing. Texturing is a whole another world, so I'm gonna give you just a couple of quick tips. First, keep your materials well organized. So I have a lot of material on my character. Some dull steel, some gold. This part gonna be silk, but the Substance Painter cannot properly make silk, so I'm gonna leave that to Blender. All the matte black materials, or the painted pink, and any material you have, put them into folders and name them properly so you can go back and work on them later. This is also a very good practice for studio works, where you may need to pass your character onto a couple other artists or art director to take a look at. If you name them properly, the team gonna have an easier time checking out your texturing. And lastly, you can put all the weathering, all the dust, all the scratch, put them all into a folder on top, so it will look uniform across your character, so you don't have a different kind of dirt here and different kind of dust over there. That would look disjointed, look like your character is made from a few parts from a few area. That's not good. Put most of your weathering into a folder and put them on top like this. And texturing is also where you have to keep in mind your character stories. Making a character more dirty, more dark, more grimy, make them look good. But keep in mind, is that fit your character or not? For my character, I want her to be a pristinely clean and high-tech mecha. So having dirt and scratch and dust everywhere would not match her aesthetic. So I keep the scratch, the dirt, and everything like that. Keep them down to a minimal, just to show that, yes, she has been through some battle. She has been through some operation. She is very well maintained and don't have a lot of big damage. She always got prepared, got routinely taken care of, so she would look pristine. So that any part that heavily damaged would instantly got replaced. So it would make sense that only the light scratch, the light dirt remain on her body. So do keep in mind your story for the character to make your final result look more coherent, to tell your story about your characters. Now to the rig and pose. Poses have a lot of meaning for your characters. So don't present your character in a T-pose way. That looks very unappealing. Poses can say a lot about a character, whether they are shy, they are strong, they are sassy, or they are evil. Your pose can convey a lot of that. So you want at least one pose for your characters. If you can do multiple poses, that's even better. In my case, I always make 3-4 poses for my original character because posing character is fun. And to pose your character in a variety of ways, such as I just give 4 examples here, but I give her like 6-7 poses. So to pose your character quickly and not lose a lot of time to pose your character, I would recommend give your character at least a basic rig. For example, for Lilith, I use Blender default rig, modify it to fit her, make a custom rig for her wings to pose her wing. You can see her wing is open in some render, add the default stage in some, and close in some. So rigging the wings and her body give me a lot of freedom to pose her however I want, to express her characters a little bit better, conveying what she's doing, conveying her action, her weight, and more. A pose is very important to express your characters. Here we have Lilith's rig. Nothing too crazy, just some basic bone to control some of her details. If you want any detail to move, you should have an individual bone for all of them. Nothing too crazy, nothing too advanced. You just want a basic rig for her so you can move her around in case you want to pose her multiple times. I want really fine control of her hair, so that's why I made a jungle of bone here to control her hair. If you work on enough run, this rig is not up to production standard or anything like that. In production, they usually have a professional rigger, animator, and all of those artists will take care of the rig of your character for you. In my particular case, I just want her for my portfolio piece, so this is just a very base rig so that I can pose her. Textures from Substance Painter are mostly PBR texture, physically based rendering. So anything like metal and non-metal surfaces, such as steel or plastic or brick, and any PBR surfaces like that, Substance Painter can handle very well. But outside of the PBR system of Substance Painter, materials such as glass, iridescent materials, hair, skin, gonna need custom built material for them. So if your character is going to go into a game engine, they're gonna have custom glass, custom skin for that game engine. For my character, I'm gonna use Blender, so I need to build some node in Blender for these kind of materials. So things like transparent plastic for the wings, the glowing blade here, her hair. You can see I take multiple shot of multiple setting of her hair for comparison here. Maybe the color, the skin, some of the skin settings. Look depth is the step where you're going to work all this out. Make sure the final material look the best they can. This is also the step where you look into your character as a whole. See if anything is wrong. Maybe some area is too glossy. Some other area maybe too dusty, too dirty, and anything like that. This is the step where you work all the things out. Make sure your character looks the best they can. Use a lighting setup or an HDR that would lighten up most of your character so you can have a good look at your materials. Like in this, I use a very lit up scene to look depth her hair, her skin, her makeup. Make sure that I get exactly what I want out of her. If you are indecisive of any setting on your node, give each setting a test render and put them all into one place like this to compare them easily. It will help you pick out the best setting for your characters in each case, and keep refining your node and your texture from Substance Painter until you arrive at a point you can call done. And after look depth is complete, you can move on to lighting. Now, for lightings, refer back to your original intent for this character. So if you want your character to look like they are standing in a lab or a garage or a studio taking pictures, you can place your lighting setup to express that location. Having an idea and work toward that idea is much easier compared to when you are lost and you don't know what to do. So a few things that can help you light your scene. Again, asking question. Where is your character standing at? They are in a studio, an outdoor scene, an indoor scene, or an action scene. Each of these should help you place the light to express that locations. But don't worry, if you don't know what to do yet, you can look up some HDRI. They can give you some very good hint on what would look good on your characters. Lastly, if you have multiple lighting set up for multiple poses of your characters, or you just love 2 or 4 or 3 lighting setup that you have for your characters, remember to organize them. In Blender, you can put them into collection. In Maya, you can put them into layer maybe. Organize your scene. That can help you return to any of your light setup at any moment. When all your lighting rig is complete, you can go ahead and render out your final renders. And then it's time for the final touches. Things like bloom, chromatic aberration, depth of field. Keep in mind some of these, but carefully consider that how many of these would work on your renders. Because having too many of these or have any of these one too strong can really break your renders. So you use them sparingly and carefully. And because my Lilith is a sci-fi character, I would usually make some very simple, some sci-fi futuristic graphic to go along with some of her renders. So what I have here is her best render, so that's where I'm gonna put all these design in here. Her names, just some graphics, and my signs here to make her render look like it's belonging on a magazine cover or something. Generally a very pleasing way to present your renders. And right next to her, I don't have those framing anymore because this render is not supposed to be her best render. It's supposed to be her supplemental render that show her in various different lighting and different angles of her, so the viewer can have multiple view of her. And yeah, that's it. That's how I created Lilith, the Mecha Sucubbus. Before we part, I want to give you guys some tips. So, on my ArtStation, I have written a few concept art breakdown and character workflows on here. So if you want something to read, visit my ArtStation. The first article is about this character here, where I break down my design decision, my inspiration, and my explanation of some of the decision making in this character. And the second post is about this character, where I give you a deeper look into a game character's workflows and a couple of tips and tricks here and there. This article is a few years back, but a lot of things about it still apply to this day. So if you are interested, give it a read. And of course, you can find Lilith and her human form here as well. More of her renders if you want. Here we are at the end. Thank you for tuning in today to listen about my process of creating an original design for a mecha characters. And thanks again to YCFTG for this opportunity. Goodbye, and may I see you again later in the future.